All right, guess what? Guess what? We're live. How about that? I have my coffee. I think I'm set up. I think I'm sane. I think I'm clothed and in my right mind. So we are live right now, folks. Good morning. Happy Sunday morning. And I am live as live can be. I don't think we even have a delay on here. So welcome. I've got my coffee. Just want to say cheers to all of you. My first sip. It's still almost so hot I can't drink it. So welcome. Thanks for being here this morning and for joining me. I got to tell you, up here in the Great White North, Minnesota, and I'm over in western Wisconsin, of course, just across the river from Minnesota, about an hour outside the metro area of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. It is 46 degrees right now, and for February 2nd, that's pretty nice warm weather. I wanted to go out. I actually did. I walked outside in shorts and flip-flops and a sweater this morning to have a little coffee in the sunshine on my southern exposure patio. And so it was very nice outside this morning. Traditionally, this time of year tends to be 0 or below 0. And for those of you in America, you know what Fahrenheit is. For those of you overseas, mostly Great Britain, Australia, and all of that, I think you all use Celsius. And I don't even know what that is, Celsius. I think, if I'm not mistaken, isn't 15 degrees Celsius the same as 0 Fahrenheit? I'm not sure. So we're usually, and I might be wrong about that. So anyway, there you go. Good morning, Kelly. You're the first one I saw on there. Field guy, nice to see you. You got no sound? Do I have sound? Everybody hear me? Let's see. Susie Q, how you doing there? Good to see you. Neil, nice to see you from over in Ireland. And hope everything's well for you. I guess it's this afternoon over there. What is it, about 3 in the afternoon for you? And Steph, good to see you. And let's see. Oh, you hear me, field guy. Okay. You said your volume off. I do that all the time. That's a great metaphor for life. You're talking, but I can't hear you. My volume's off. So I've got my volume off on a lot of things these days. TC, nice to see you. Oh, you want me to start with a song? I don't know if I could sing this morning if I wanted to. I've just come off of a week of chest and head cold, and I'm starting to feel better. I've got the naggy little cough that still hangs on, so I cannot guarantee that I will not cough during this program. And Barbara, nice to see you. Let's see. Today, February at 2 o'clock for 2 minutes. Visualize world peace. 2 o'clock this afternoon, Barbara. I hope it wasn't this morning or we missed our visualization. Chase, nice to see you. You were here way early, probably expecting me to show up right away. And so thank you all for waiting. Sunday mornings, you'd think it would be calm and peaceful, and setting a live show on a schedule would be easy to breeze your way into. But this morning, like most mornings for me around here on the weekends, was already plagued with kids fighting over what to watch on TV and things like, we have more TVs in my house than I had the whole time I was growing up, if you put them all together. Now, I grew up in, of course, the late 60s and the early 70s, graduating high school in 1978. That gives you my dates for those of you who don't know. And we had one TV when I was a kid, and it was a black and white TV about this big down in the basement. And it was in the living room. And then we got the big color TV. You remember how those were? For those of you who are old enough, they came in the big wooden cabinets, the big consoles. And ours actually had a color TV screen in it about this big for about a 6-foot long wooden console with speakers built in. We had the record player, the old LPs, which have now made a big comeback. And that was also built into it. But then we kids got the old TV down. My brother and I in our bedroom down in the basement is a little 13-inch black and white Zenith or something like that. And so we had that TV. And now, today, we just kind of went through it because we've bought a couple of TVs over the years and we've upgraded in size and all of that. Now we've got like a 60-inch color flat screen TV out in the main living room of the house, the family room. And so our 55-inch TV, which was sorely out of date once we got the 60, well, that went up into the bedroom. And so we've got in our big master bedroom, we've got the big TV up there. Then we've got in the kids' room another older TV that we had that was like a 44-inch or something like that. 42 or 37, I don't know what the measurements were. They've got that. And then there's also a small 21-inch flat screen that we had gotten for the kids just to play games on. That's up there also in the kid room. And so I think we counted it out. We've got 5 flat screen color TVs. And yet there is always a war between the kids in my house over who's going to get to watch what on what television. And it's usually always in the family room, the main room, which is open to the kitchen area and the dining area. It's all open format. And so kids already fighting this morning over what to watch on TV. And I told them, if you're going to fight about it, this TV downstairs goes off, or I turn on the news, and you can go up in your bedroom and watch whatever you want. That's what I tell the kids. I said, you have more TVs. You are more privileged than most kids around the world because you got your own TV. I said that all by itself elevates you to a totally different standard of living in the world. And so, when you count it out, you ever done that? You ever stopped to count out all the stuff you have? Let's see, we've got 5 televisions in our house. That makes 1 per person if we wanted to do it that way. On top of the televisions, we've got my computer, my laptop, my wife's computer, desktop over there. And we have the kids have, we all have tablets, iPads. So that's 5 more of those. So we've got 5 TVs, 5 tablets. That's 10, 11, 12, 13. We have 13 devices, plus our phones, 14, 15 devices, plus a couple of old, they're Kindles or something. A couple of old Kindles that nobody ever uses anymore through Verizon when we were on Verizon 5-6 years ago, sitting around here in storage somewhere. So we've actually have 17 devices in this household on which you could access the internet or the world at large. And if you don't have a phone, you can get onto any number of programs on those iPads where you can dial out through the programs, like Gmail. You can get on Gmail and you can dial phone numbers and go out. So my kids are not underprivileged, to be sure. Now, when I use the word privilege, there, let's see, I'm trying to set my lights right because it's kind of wonky in here. Oh, there's the blue. So I'm not talking about white privilege. I'm talking about privilege, basic privilege. Now, my kids were not born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and we certainly don't have a lot of money. We're not wealthy people by any stretch of the imagination. We have 5 TVs. We have 17 devices to access the internet in this house, but we still drive old cars. We've got a 2007 Mercedes SUV, and we've got a 2007 minivan of some kind, of Chevy minivan, both of which are just about done. And well, at least in need of expensive repairs. And so they're drivable, but you look at that. We live in a place that's a little smaller than we want. We don't have acres anymore right now. At one point, we had 40 acres when Rainey and I were first married and first together. We had a 40-acre horse ranch. Then that went away around 2010, 2009, 2010. And then we lived in a house that we rented in the village. And then we moved up here to New Richmond, about 30 miles north. And so there, blah, blah, blah. Not that you need to know that history or that makes even interesting radio. But just to say, when you look at that and you look at the American standard of living or Western culture's standard of living, it's very different than third world, second world, so on. And so when I say we have 5 TVs and my kids are arguing over one, that's first world problems. We're not at least out foraging trying to figure out what to eat tomorrow. So, or even today. So there you go. I got to see what everybody's saying in here. You're only 35, says Heather. Hey, Heather. I love Heather. She's over in Scotland. So, oh, classy. So, you're 35 and you had a black and white telly at the age of 12 to 15. And my mom wouldn't buy any stuff before had an old radio. Yeah, radio. Well, we listened to a lot of radio. I found an old transistor radio, little one that was palm sized. That I found at a garage sale, and it was kind of neat. It was old. It was from the 70s or 60s even, and we used to have those, and that's how we didn't get to have them for information. We had them to listen to music when I was a kid, and that's all we did with them. So, Heather, it's nice to have you here. Let's see who else has come in. Kenny, good to see you, brother. And let's see what else we got. Betsy, nice to see you as well. And Audrey, you're here. Good to see you. Good morning, darling. It's 7:20 in the morning out there on the left coast. So glad you could be up. And Kenny, I have a small 1/4-acre farm. Very nice, Kenny. Yeah, we have one of those too. I think in the city, the lots are 1/8 of an acre. If you measure them out, when you have a typical house sitting on a typical suburban lot, with a front yard and a backyard, without an alley in the back, generally about 1/8 of an acre. So, Sterling McCobb, good to see you. 7:20 on the West Coast, says Audrey. Sean, good morning. Good to see you. This is, again, one of the things I like about being able to go live on Sunday mornings is being able to actually interact with you kind of it's not really one-on-one, but in the morning. So Neil said way back at the beginning, glad I caught this. Will be nice to talk with Scotty and the family. I have severe MS and spent all day in the hospital yesterday going through scans and tests. Feel very sick, but glad to be here. Neil, I'm glad to see you here. I did not know that about you. So I hope everything is going well. Report in. Let us know how you're doing today. And I don't know much about MS. I know I did have an art teacher when I was a kid that had MS. So she had a lot of difficulty walking and things like that. I'm not sure what state yours is in or how they even gauge that stuff. So that's good to know. Everybody think of Neil. And let's see. You were in Dublin City yesterday, and you saw so many homeless people. No drug addicts or mentally disabled, but families with all their belongings on the side of the road. You know, Neil, that is how prevalent is, if you're still sitting here, let us know how prevalent is that problem or that type of situation over there in Ireland, in Dublin, where you see whole families with their belongings on the side of the road. I think over here in the United States, we have pockets of areas where you could probably find families with all their belongings that they could carry or push around in a wheelbarrow or drag around or have it in a van or a car. And that's how they live because they're homeless. And it's funny to me, and it became cliche for many years. How many of you are about 1 or 2 paychecks away from homelessness? Now, a lot of people rent properties. We're renting a townhome. That's where we live now. We don't own our own house right now. And the policy here is if you are 2 weeks late on rent, you can be evicted. And I thought, wow, for 14 days, let's say you run into a problem. your car breaks down and you got to put out money, or you lost a paycheck, you got laid off, or something like that. If you don't remedy that problem in lots of areas up here in the United States, 14 days and you could be facing eviction, meaning you're about a month away from living on the streets or having to seek charitable help of some kind. Now, that to me now you have to balance that against the fact that entrepreneurs, people who build these properties, that's how they make their livings. I get that. And now I'm going to say some things here, folks, that might smack of sounding a bit socialistic, maybe to some of you, but that's not where I'm going with this. But I got to ask some questions of you. At what point do we as a society help those who cannot help themselves, help those who have fallen through the cracks? Let's say my family, for instance. I am self-employed. What if I came to a spot where all of a sudden I couldn't pay my rent, or I couldn't afford to put food on the table? Because working for myself, I've got to go out and find my own projects, and then I have to perform those tasks and bill my clients. What if you have a client that doesn't pay? And let's say you're sitting at the beginning of the month and you can't pay your rent. You call and you say, look, I'm going to be late on my rent. And they say, you're good. You got 14 days. What if you don't make it in on 14 days? What if my family, got evicted? And let's say there was nowhere to go. We could go, if we were in a really tragic situation, emergency, we've got family. We could go throw stuff in a storage locker and we could go live with family until we got back on our feet. Those kinds of things exist. But let's say you didn't have that. You could go to the county, and I happen to know in this particular county where we live, if we fell into that, there are not funds available to help a family stay on their feet. There are funds to augment. You could go to places here and get $150 so you can help feed your kids, things like that. So all of those things exist out there to help people. What happens when somebody falls through the cracks? Neil just mentioned in Dublin City that he saw a whole family with all their belongings sitting on the side of the road. At what point do we as a people say, we want to authorize our government to help take care of these people when they get in those situations? Not carte blanche, not necessarily funding a $3,500 a month mortgage payment, but we want to help those people stay on their feet so they're not on the streets. We want to help them have a roof over their head, help them, when tragedy hits or when circumstances hit. Where do you end up? If you end up on the street, how do you combat that? If it's a sudden turn of bad events, tragic, I would want to say for some other things, for other types of catastrophes. But you have catastrophic change that hits you all of a sudden, and you're out on the streets. What is in place to help people? I have never been one to say government should not do these things. That government, hi, baby. There's my Rowan, my 8-year-old. Here, step up on the rung so people can see your face. Say happy Sunday morning, everybody.
Hi.
That's Rowan Claire. All right, go do your thing.
I'm writing down the song on another piece
Okay.
of paper again.
All right, sweetie. I'll talk to you about it when I'm done. So, and by the way, federal government in this country, I believe, is different than state government. Obviously, the way our system is set up, the federal government is meant to do certain things by the Constitution, and that's it. State government, we are the United States. For those of you who need a primer on that or a reminder, we're the United Independent States of America. We are unified under a federal government, and the state governments are what runs each individual state, as long as they stay within the Constitution. And baby, I cannot help you with that right now. Please close my door. You guys are going to have to figure out you got to figure out don't keep talking. You got to go figure out your own stuff. Say hi to all the thousands of people that are listening and listening to you arguing with me. Why don't you go back in the other room? And you guys, look at my eyes. You guys go figure out your little spiff. All right.
Say something.
I love you.
I'm watching the movie and Rowan keeps singing.
Okay. Hey, Rowan, stop singing in the room when your sister's watching a cartoon. There you go, folks. If you've got kids, you understand the pain. So that was Ellery. She didn't come in into the camera view, but the kids are out there. Dad, Rowan won't stop singing while I'm trying to watch my cartoon. Barge right in. I should lock my doors when I do this. But Sunday morning, I always tell the kids it's a little more casual. I tell Rainey it's a little more casual. I'll leave the door open if you guys don't make a ruckus out there. But there you go. Where was I? So talking about, and Leslie, I would love to I see you're in the chat room. Welcome this morning. I'd love to get your take on it if you haven't already somewhere up the line. Rocky, love to get your take on it. At what point do state governments need to step in and help people? And I know the help is already there. It does exist. It's there. How do you prevent families from, Neil was mentioning this morning, for those of you who are latecomers here, that he was over in Dublin City yesterday in Ireland and saw whole families sitting on the side of the road with all their belongings because they're homeless. So where does the state come in? Do we expect as a people that are self-governed here, of the people, by the people, for the people, that we have put people, representatives of us, in place to be able to, and we vote on these kinds of things, what is allowable? What do we do for people who are down and out? What do we do for, and we do have facilities, we have all of that, but yet with all that exists already, we still, Rocky, you know this as well as I do, and so do you, Leslie. We hear of people all the time that are falling through these cracks. And it's something that we don't expect to see amongst people that are like ourselves, meaning Westerners, we're Americans. We all have a house. We all have a place to live. We sometimes have a seedy apartment to live in. But families generally have a place to live, whether they're renting or buying. There's a place. And it seems so foreign in nature to us to say there's families that are homeless, whole families living in shelters. We've blocked that segment of society off from us. And then the question has to be asked, is that because we don't associate with people that become homeless? Meaning, are they of a different social ranking? Are they of a different intellectual ranking? Are they of a different, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not going for classist here, so I'm trying to avoid that. It's not a class thing, but there are people that, when we're in a neighborhood here, we don't usually have people in our neighborhoods that fall short like that. So there are definitely segments of society and definitely pockets of society where that's more apt to happen. Is it the uneducated? Is it and by uneducated, I mean those who could never afford to go to school, never afford to advance themselves more? Is it, and we do have programs for that as well, to help people in trade schools and getting in through college. Maybe not necessarily university. You're not going to find funding necessarily to go get your master's or your doctorate. But you can find schools that are there, trade schools, technical colleges, things like that, that offer programs and state programs to help you get educated. So what gets a person to the place where they're homeless with a family, no place to go? And what, if anything, do we as a society, what obligation do we have to those people? Leslie says we're on this earth to help one another. I don't look down on anyone who is down on their luck Absolutely. Same here. And there are times, I got to tell you, there are times I wish I had the means to help people who are in need, other than just a few bucks here and a few bucks there. It would be nice to say, I've got the wherewithal to help a family build a house or to help them rent a house. You know, wouldn't you, if you could, if you saw a family that was struggling, say, I've just paid your rent for 6 months. Now, hopefully that will help you out while you find a way to get yourself ahead. It happens. But my initial statements getting into all this was, it's amazing to me nowadays, it's a renter's market, or not a renter, renters, those who are renting facilities out. It's their market right now because there isn't a lot of permanence. There hasn't been people building a lot of houses. The economy's improving, but it has been a market where people building housing and facilities charge more and more and more every day. This townhome that we're in, we just found out the identical townhome right next door to us. It's just a mirror reflection, identical townhome, costs that. There's a woman and her brother that live over there next door. They're paying $350 more per month for their place than our place. We've been here about a year and a half. And I think, why is there the difference there in price? We have a family of 5. That's a single woman and her single brother. And they pay $350 more for the same place. It's because they can charge that. It's a market right now where renting is costing more and more and more money. When the market corrects itself and people can start buying more houses, I'll bet your rent is going to start coming down because it's going to be harder to rent these facilities that everybody's building. So all of that aside, I'm not into finance. I don't like to talk finance, things like that. I'm talking what happens to people. And this all, of course, let me cut off my own thought there. It ties into why you have people arguing about a minimum wage. What if somebody can only find a minimum wage job? $7.35 an hour. A lot of places have gone up to $10 an hour, McDonald's. But when you think about that, let's say you get hired full-time. You're one of the lucky ones. 40 hours a week. That's $400 a week. That is roughly $1,600 a month before tax, which means you're taking home what, roughly 11 to 1,300 in that range, depending on your not dependents, your deductibles. And so let's say you're bringing home that much money, 11 to 1,300, all by itself. You say, wow, if I had $1,100 a month, that's a nice shot at doing something with that money. However, when that's the money you subsist with, that you live off of, and the average apartment right now, just an apartment to rent, is $800 to $1,200 a month if you have a family. So how far do you suppose that $1,100 to $1,300 goes every month? It doesn't. These are the people that get stuck on welfare, get stuck on supplements. I'm working, but I don't have enough to feed my family, pay my electric bill, let alone internet becomes a luxury instead of a necessity. It's not a necessity. It's considered a luxury. So what do you do? Here's the big question. What do families do when they're stuck in that rut? How do they get out of that rut? This is why you have low income earners having to live in communities or sections of our inner cities where they can afford what they can get. And it tends to be a little less savory at times. So it's not to say that poor people aren't good people, but a lot of poor people together in a segment of society where they're forced to live in substandard housing, they don't have enough money to pay the bills, um, those segments of society are generally not the ones where you see there's lots of extra money to put gardens out in front of your house and things like that. They live to get by, and it feels like a trap. And I know people in those situations. And so, what do you do? What do you do? So, let's see. Kenny said, my 30-year-old quits every job after 6 months. He'd be homeless if he didn't live at home. There you go. He's 30 and lives at home. Kenny, I'm not giving you any advice, but if my son was 30 and living at home and quitting a job every 6 months, I'd say, son, I'm going to grant you the freedom of going out on your own into the world and learning how to live. So, yes, Leslie, they do base it on income. I do know that. And so we've got these problems that exist. And I wasn't prepared to talk about this. It was just what Neil said about seeing a homeless family that made me think about these things. These are things you wonder about and you talk about them. There's the whole there, but for the grace of God go I type of thing that goes in there. And you hope to God you have enough to fall back on should you ever run into emergencies, or should you ever run into a situation where you don't know where the next paycheck's coming from. Those are situations where hopefully we have fail safes that are set into our local governments. And by local, I don't mean federal government. I mean local, here in our own counties, our own cities, and our states. There are plenty of things in place to help people out. There are some states that are more lenient than others. There are some states that are very strict about that kind of thing. So it all depends on your situation and what's going on. So let's see. Obamacare destroyed a whole lot of full-time jobs. Many of those families lost their employer, provided health insurance. It damaged the financial situations of many. That's true. That's very true. So, hey guys, hold on just a second. Scintillating Live Radio. I have some kids out there that I hear scuffling over TV, crying. I've got my door shut, so you might not be able to hear it. Hang on right there. Let's take a 2-minute break while I go see if I can solve the world's problems for my little children, and I'll be right back. Hey guys. Okay. All right, I'm back. There. I've just solved the world's problems for a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. And hopefully they're going to be able to live with that. Wasn't too bad. Crisis averted. So anyway, I don't want to sit and talk about this a long time. But the interesting thing with all of this that comes down to it, that it all boils down to, we have the freedom in this country to pursue our dreams, to implement those dreams. Sometimes the implementation is harder, much harder than the dream, obviously. But isn't that really the way it ought to be? You got to work hard for your dreams. You got to work hard to make something happen. And it takes time. Sometimes some of the kids that we see getting pumped out of schools and all of this stuff is that they think they deserve something put on their plate for them. And that's just not the way that it works. Audrey says, our POS government here in California, all you have to say is California, Audrey, and you know it's the government screwed up. Enforce the penalty for no health insurance. My tax guy was telling me yesterday that this penalty will contribute to further our local homeless issue. That's terrible. So there's a penalty if you don't have health insurance provided by the state, Audrey. Is it state insurance? Because I know that's what Obamacare initially wanted to do, was if you didn't get Obamacare, you were going to be penalized by the IRS, by the federal government. And that was what made it, one of the points that made it incredibly unconstitutional. The government cannot create a product that you must buy and penalize you for it if you don't buy it. It's not the government's place. And so that's why there were problems with Obamacare from the start, one of the big issues. And I'm not versed in all of that stuff. I don't talk about it. I talk in principle because I can deal with basic principles. There was something my grandfather said to me a very long time ago. I was in high school, and he was a world traveler, but he was a world traveler that on like 25 cents a day type of world traveler. He would fly places and he'd go hike countries. He did a lot of hiking in Central America. He went to the jungles in, I think it was Korea, and had a 30-year-old Thai woman that was backpacking through the jungles with him when he was like 65 years old. 6 years older than I am now. He's got a 30-year-old Thai woman companion going through the jungles with him, sleeping in hammocks at night, things like that. I happen to have, he passed away in 1995, but I have this right here. This was his walking stick, his hiking stick that he used to walk around. He had this carved by a guy in Honduras where he finally settled down. He bought a little piece of an island. I've mentioned this before, down in Honduras. And this is one of the local guys carved this up for him. It's not fantastic artwork. It's just local art. And this guy made this for my grandfather. And this was his walking stick, which was what I got when he passed away. I got this. I said, I want his walking stick. So, but he was what you might call, he was definitely a socialist. And he was probably a communist by philosophy. He would have been a Bernie Sanders guy had he lived so long. And I remember him telling me once, we were going through a lot of his pictures and his stories about some of his trips to some of these very poor parts of Central America. And by trip, I mean, he wasn't staying in hotels, like I already mentioned. He'd get there and he'd get a ride to where he was going. He didn't have a vehicle down there, didn't rent a vehicle, and he'd go and he'd walk. And he backpacked. And he would run into the local people and he'd stay with local people. And he would say about America, he said, there shouldn't be anybody in this country who should get sick and not be taken care of. Now, we have, to a certain degree, we have that in place in this country, catastrophic health. But let's say you needed to have something done that your health insurance covers, but that a hospital is not going to do for you if you don't have coverage. I'm not thinking of a prime example off the top of my head, but there are lots of procedures they don't do if you don't have coverage of some kind or can pay for it. So it's like my heart attack. When I had my heart attack and my open heart surgery 3 years ago, we're actually like right on the 3-year anniversary. I think it was February 6th of 2017 when I had my chest cracked open. And if I hadn't had insurance, it was interesting. A little story here. I have a good friend of mine that we didn't talk all the time. I didn't find out till almost 6 months after my surgery that he was in the hospital having the identical surgery that I had. And same exact problem, same exact remedy, same cardiologist. We didn't even know when we were in the hospital at the same time, right down the hall from each other, just didn't know it. And, you go walking around the hospital, even after the surgery, you're shuffling around, getting your feet back on. You can see people in their room. I never saw him, never bumped into him, so I didn't know he was there. And so what was interesting when we were comparing notes, I had insurance, but he didn't. I remember my total bill for being in the hospital I think I was in the hospital after that for almost 10 days and 8 or 9 days, and heart surgery and everything that goes along with it. The total bill for that I got, that I had to pay out of my pocket because of my insurance, $7.35. That's all it cost me. My friend Brad, he didn't have insurance at the time. He'd been in security his whole life. Very intelligent man. He was just in a position currently where he didn't have insurance coverage. A block of time when this hit him, his bill came to over $110,000 for the same identical thing I had. My insurance covered it. Brad had no insurance, and he still has hanging over his head a bill for over $110,000 3 years later. That's the difference between having insurance and not having insurance. So insurance is a good thing to have, to put your money into, to invest it. Let's see. Susie says, Heather wants a reading. Heather, I'm going to give you a reading. You know why? Because I don't think I've ever done a reading for you. For all the years, I've known you since my years at TAPS Paramag. So we'll do a couple of readings this morning. Susie, thanks for throwing that up there. And in a couple of minutes, we'll get to that. So anyway, there you go. I want to be done with this talk anyway. I mentioned things that bother me or things I think about, and I want to get your opinions on it, but I don't have enough fodder to make this an interesting topic that we're going to talk about for an hour. Although I've kind of been on this topic for a little over a half an hour. There you go, folks. Just think about that. Think about that. And what do we do about it? How do we move forward with that? We don't need national health care unless that national health care recognizes states' rights. It's not the federal government's responsibility, but the state governments are different. So they all have their own constitutions for their state, as long as they do not violate the national constitution. So Kelly says, I'm off to do my Sunday. Have a great day, all, and thank you, Scotty. Thanks, Kelly. Good to see you. Hey, Roger Rabbit, how you doing, brother? Good to see you. And if I missed anybody along the way, it's because I'm talking too much, and I didn't get to see you come into the room. And I see somebody up here that I need to say hi to. I don't know. Hey, Heather, if you're still in the room, if you're still listening, type something in so I know you're there. And if you're still here, I'll do a little reading for you. We're going to do 1 to 3 card readings. Let's see what comes up. We'll do a few of those this morning, folks. Rocky and I want to give a little ad for tonight at 11 p.m. Central Standard Time, midnight Eastern Time, and that would be 9 p.m. West Coast Time. The Situation Room, Rocky Stucci's Situation Room. We're going to be on tonight at it's technically the Monday show because it airs at midnight, which is Monday morning, out on the East Coast. And we've got a guest from MUFON that is going to be on with us. Can't remember his name. So MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. And so we'll see what he has to say. Could be a very interesting show. So you'll want to tune in tonight. That is what? That's roughly 13 hours from now. So you got a little prep time. A little prep time to get your drinks and your snacks lined up so you can listen to tonight's show. Let's see. Jay Jordan, good to see you. Is that John Jordan or Jim Jordan? I don't know which Jordan that is. So I know a John Jordan and I know a Jim Jordan. So good to see you, brother. Can't tell by your picture. Oh, it's Jim. How you doing, brother? We were just talking about healthcare and stuff like that. A topic I'm not big on. I don't like talking about it because I don't know enough about it. But we tend to, and Jim, this is for your benefit almost alone, and maybe some of those you who don't know. When I do my daily show, I vowed I would not go into politics on my daily show. So we try to keep that for different categories, for spirituality, for Star Trek, entertainment, other types of things that we talk about on that show, history, historical events. Every now and then I lapse into doing politics because sometimes it's like holding back wild horses to keep me from talking about things that are going on around us. And Rocky and I, we reserve that for Rocky's and my show. But on Rocky's and my show, we do politics. We tend to get into paranormal because we get so tired of the same old thing that's out there with politics. So let's see. You still owe the fines for no insurance? Wow. Yeah. And a break from politics is required. That's what I try to do with my shows. But Sunday morning, we'll get into it a little bit more. I'm live Sunday morning. And for all of those of you who are here who don't know, I broadcast my daily show on the Odyssey Radio Network, and they spread out to several different internet networks, plus 26 terrestrial stations. So my show during the week is, in all actuality, is a radio show, and it's a national radio show, and it gets picked up internationally. We're on at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern, every night of the week, Monday through Friday. And we simulcast the video alongside the audio that goes out to the radio right here on this channel, Monday through Friday. And so if you have not been, you're welcome to come in. You can chat in the chat room, and I'll be there available in the chat room as well, Monday through Friday. And then Rocky and I do our show at 11 Central Standard Time, midnight, as I was saying, starting tonight, which is Monday morning out east. So we go technically, for everybody who's still awake, Sunday night through Thursday night with the Situation Room. So let's see. Heather White and Barbara Donica and Captain and then Neil. There we go. Okay, let's keep it to those three for right now, and let's see how far we get and how things go. Good thing, Neil. Yeah, Neil and I were going to try to do one privately, and we never did get it lined up, even though we talked. Hey, Mike Yahudi, love your name. So let's do that. Let's get into this right now. Heather, I didn't see because I got stuck talking. If you are front and center, Heather, let's do one for you. I may have missed it, and the chat has scrolled by. So if you're here, Heather, just let me know, and we'll start doing a little reading for you. We're going to do 1 to 3 card readings. I think I'll start doing 3 card readings. We'll see how they feel this morning. Yeah, that's one of those things that I go by my feelings. I go by how things are hitting my mind at the time they happen. So everybody, if you're here, watch, see what you think of the tarot readings, and we'll try to do a few more today. Let's see where we get. I've got to be out of here in about 45 minutes. So let's see what we can get done in that time. You can't see her, Susie? Oh, that's too bad. Heather, if you're not here, I'm going to move to the next person in line, and we'll get you when you're here. Maybe, I hate missing her. And I didn't see her ask for one earlier, or I would have jumped into it a little sooner. So, you know what I could do, and I won't do this for everybody. I've just known Heather for a long time. Maybe I will, I'll send her a quick message. and tell her if she wants to get a reading to come on in. And in the meantime, let's see. Who do we have on second? I know we have Neil is on third, and I didn't see who you had on as second, Susie Q. Let's see. I hate scrolling back for this stuff. So it's so hard to keep up with the chat room when it moves. So sorry about that, guys. Here, I'm just going to shoot a quick message out to Heather and let her know. Let's see. Heather White in Glasgow. She's a Glasgowian. And I'm just typing a message. I know this is Scintillating Live Radio. There you go. I messaged her. If she comes in, she comes in. So let's see. Who was next? Heather? Barbara. Heather was your stripper name back in the 80s? Woo! Heather. It wasn't Bambi or something like that? Not that I know a lot of strippers. I dated a woman who was a stripper once. After I was divorced from my kid's wife, my first 3 kids. I dated a woman for 4.5 years. That was a former stripper. She quit stripping when she started dating me. I remember very early on in the relationship, she asked, she said, hypothetically, would you date somebody who was a stripper? And I said, I suppose I'd have to go through some mental justifications for that. And I said, it all depends. I said, maybe I wouldn't date her, but I'd say if that's what you want to do with your life, that's your call. But I'm not going to control that. But you know what? It might not work for my relationship. And later she told me she was stripping at the time, had been before she met me, and that she quit for me, which was very interesting. So one fat guy and one fat guy. Very nice, Mike Yehudi. Mike Yehudi, male stripper. So, well, I don't see Heather. And Susie Q, you had said that there was one other person plus Neil. I'm going to jump to Neil because I can't see who the other person was. If you're here and you already asked for one, just say so, and we'll get back to you. So, Neil, let's start out with you, brother. Now, I'm only going to do, you guys have seen that have been here before, I do 1 to 3 card readings. I'm going to do a 3-card reading for Neil. And so let me shuffle up and we'll go from there. And only Neil is going to know how accurate this is, if it's fitting him or not. If it's the tarot. When you look at 1 to 3 one card, you're going to get a very general overlook of things. When you look at 3 cards, you're going to get a slightly detailed more of a look, but it may not be all encompassing. It's going to give you some ideas, Neil. And there, I've shuffled 3 times. Let's cut this deck for Neil. And Neil, if you were here, I'd have you put your hand to the cards and shuffle them. As it is, I'm doing that for you. So here we go. All right. Now, what I want to say about the cards too is that the cards are you're going to get fairly general answers, but sometimes they can be very specific, and it all depends on your situation. You're going to be able to tell what it says, and so I guess that's enough caveats in here. I just wanted you to be aware of that and to know that as we go forward. And I believe that something governs the shuffling of the cards. And by something, I look at that as, I used to say it's God, it's your angels, it's your spirit guides. And now I've gotten more in recent years to saying, If it's spiritual, it could be God, your angels, your spirit guides, however those things exist. Or they could simply be what I've referred to as universe, as the source. You can call that God if you'd like, if you put a personal pronoun on it, if it were, as it were. And so something shuffles, something rearranges. And I figure if the universe has the ability to be created, to fall into place, and everything held together, that same force can also reshuffle a deck of cards, align them to on a whatever level you might look at that, and to deliver a message for somebody. All right, here we go, Neil. Front and center. Here's your first card. This is the card of your current situation. It is the Page of Swords. Now, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the tarot, Neil. So I'll tell you what the cards are, and then we'll go back and we'll read them. Now, the card of your recent past is the Sun, and the card of your near future is the Ace of Cups. All right. Now, let's go back and read these and take a look at what's going on for you. Like I said, your first card right now is the Page of Swords. Now, if you know the tarot, you know that there are 5 sections to the tarot. You got the major arcana, which is kind of these messages from God, so to speak, or source, or spiritual, or whatever, however you want to call it. But then you've got the 4 suits that are the sub-suits, if you will. The swords, the wands, the cups, and the coins, or the pentacles. And these all represent different aspects of life, if you will. Each one of these suits. Think of a deck of playing cards, for those of you who are new to this and haven't heard me talk about this before. It's like a deck of playing cards. You got the ace all the way up to the king. And just like in a playing deck, and they all represent, those numbers represent something, and the suits represent something. And so the Page of Swords we've got right here. Now, if you see this is talking about, you see, it looks like kind of in a way on this card, the way she's presented the art, a little detached. Swords is the suit of power and authority, but it's also the suit of conflict. Conflict you get, conflict you give. Swords are double-edged. And this is talking about the abilities that are lying dormant in you right now, Neil, are being brought to the surface in your current situation. The events of your past are leading you to activity, and the time to carve out your own path is at hand, is kind of the general. It almost sounds sing-songy in a way, some of the messages that come with these cards. But there's unexpected news. These pages, in the page in each one of the 4 suits, indicates the messengers, somebody who's errands of the king, somebody who's bringing messages, missives from the king. And this is a card that says there's unexpected news coming, but in order to benefit from the changes coming, you have to rely on your own intelligence, your own strength, your own ability to adapt to what this news is for you, what it's bringing to you. And it's a desire to change in you that's making you, maybe this card, like you see the expression on his face here. I don't know if you can make that out or not, but the idea there was to express the fact that in this card, it's something that might make you irritable. It might make you agitated. The desire for this change to happen, impatient, frustrated. So seeking independence of your mind is going to lead you to this clearer perception of your motivation and of others and their motivations. And so you got something new that's on your plate. The sword here might be a little less about conflict, other than conflict in your own mind about things, but you grasping the sword of power and authority for yourself. And that's creating motivation, but at the same time, you're experiencing that irritability, that frustration of not being able, that agitation for wanting that change to happen, or maybe not wanting that change to happen. And it's something that you are doing to affect change, is the idea. in one direction or the other, and that could be causing you a little bit of frustration in your current. So the Page of Swords represents an intelligent, logical, vigilant individual. And the card is the youth on the card is bringing some sort of official news of change for you. And while the changes could prove to be challenging, the card shows pretenses of mental clarity, inner demons being settled and ridden from your life. And so it's a positive speaking card for as dark as it looks, and the fact that it's in the suit of conflict and things like that. So it's you being able to take the sword of power and authority, you being able to do what you need to do to affect the change that's coming for one direction or another for yourself. That's the idea of this card. And so right now in your current, this is where you are. And I also want to say, Neil, I'll tell you this, but I also want to remind everybody else who is listening to this that a reading like this is a snapshot. It's of where you are at the moment. And it might not be, Neil, your whole life. It might be a piece of your life that this is referring to. Or it might be your whole life, that something is that big. It could be just a cog, a wheel that's in the machinery right now. But whatever it is, it's something that it's going to change in a couple of days because you're going to move forward into your future, make things happen. But right now, this card that is putting you in this position of being the guy that can take that sword of authority, be a little frustrated and irritated that you either have to do it or that you're not affecting change the way you want. You're not seeing it happening the way you want. Even though it's a positive thing, this new news, this new change, the idea is that you've got the Sun card in your recent past. That is, in essence, this is the energy that's brought you and plopped you down in your present. And this is something that talks about the successes that you've achieved in the past are going to set the stage for future accomplishment, future joy, future happiness, if you will. So continue developing your line of work, your field of studies, and the rewards coming to you. Now, this is your past. This is the energy that's bringing you to where you are with the Page of Swords right now. There's an opportunity for new things to happen, new friendships, new relationships, be they personal, be they business relationships that are going to lead you to happiness and contentment. And this is one that says, don't give up, and you will be led to success in whatever your endeavor is here. But it's notice it's hinging on how you react to it. Again, that thing about being frustrated with the first card, a little irritated and things like that. You're like the swing vote. You've got to make things happen the way you need them to happen. And so you're approaching a moment that has the potential to change your life. Take full advantage of the time, and you're going to achieve future of endless possibility. This card in your recent past saying that the Sun is the card of warmth, of love, of support, of being surrounded by these things. Now, it might not be that you have a ton of people that represent those things around you. It could just be you, that you're feeling the warmth of things. The universe is working in your favor type of thing. It's also a card that speaks of clarity. When the sun is shining, you have clarity to see for miles. And I've said that before about this card. So it's all about vision and clarity. And you're able to see with the sun shining. You can see where you're supposed to be going, what you're supposed to be doing. So there's clarity and vision. But at the same time, it's cyclical. The sun also sets. So the idea is make hay while the sun shines. That's a phrase I've always attached to this card. While the sun is shining, get your stuff done. Make it happen. Make it work. Now, this is your recent past. And it's put you in the situation of the Page of Swords. That's what's plopped you off into this. This may still be shining for you right now, But right now, you've got the Page of Swords that says, take the sword by the hilt and make things happen the way you need them to happen. It may cause conflict. It may be out of conflict, but you have the authority to move ahead. Now, the Ace of Cups, this is the energy into which you're going right now. And Cups is the suit of your passions. Cups represent many times, it represents relationships, romances, interpersonal relationships, friendships, things like this. Cups can also stand for just success of life, the passions of your life. And this is the idea that now the near future card is one that it hasn't happened yet. It's future, and you can usually change whatever these cards are by the way you do things. But this is right on top of you. This moment, you're already moving into your near future. So this is where you're already going and what's coming on top of you right now, on top of that current. And you've had lots of occasions to prove your creative talent, your ability to succeed in your efforts. And by being passionate and intensely focused on the things that drive you in your passions, you've allowed for greater productivity. And so it's good news, is the idea with this card. It's going to bring joy and extreme satisfaction to your life. The angels in this deck represent messengers. And, by definition, that's what an angel was, a messenger of God. And this angel is bringing down of your passions. And they all stand beside an open door that says they opened the door and are showing you there's the threshold. They just can't drag you through or push you through. You have to take advantage of it. And so the difficulties that you face in the future are going to take a toll on your emotions as you do this. But in the end, it's all going to bring about really a bit of abundant joy and happiness where you want to be in this situation. And remembering that this is a natural balance is going to bring you great rewards. And by rewards, I don't mean the sing-songy fortune-telly type of rewards. This is reward that comes because you put your hand to something to make it happen. And this card, the Ace of Cups, represents overall satisfaction throughout all the different areas of your life. It predicts success, abundance, use of good intuition, use of creativity, new relationships, or maybe even a birth or a pregnancy. Hopefully that wouldn't be unwanted if that came. That's just one of the possibilities that comes with this card. And so it's very positive elements are linked to this card. And all this reading is telling me it doesn't necessarily mean relationship. It might not even be something that's overtly tangible at its first look. It could just be the energy that's working for you and where you want to be going. So that's what I get, Neil, off of this. I hope that makes some sense for whatever your situation is. You're the Page of Swords right now in the current. You've got that, kind of, okay, show me. Let's make it happen. I'm a little frustrated with this. I need to move on. I want to move on. I want to have the power to move on. And the Ace of Cups says that you can. The Sun card says that you have the vision right now and the clarity to do what you need to do. So there you go, Neil. I hope that's helpful. Don't let the frustrations get you down. Don't be set back by the things that irritate you about things, but go with them and realize that there's energy working on your behalf and appropriate it is the idea. The sword of power and authority, take the sword by its hilt and make that work for you. All right. I hope that was helpful. Okay. Let's move on. I'm going to see if by any chance my friend Heather got my message. Nope, I didn't see that she got my message, so I don't know if she's going to be here to get her reading or not. Let's see. So we got Neil and Susie Q. You had mentioned somebody else that was on that initial list here, and I'm trying to see who that was. Oh, Barbara Donica. let's do you next. And let's shuffle up. We got 10:19, so we're still good on our time. Let me shuffle for Barbara. All right. Hey, Jennifer. Nice to see you, yeoman. By the way, folks, if you ever see me refer to my yeoman, it's Jennifer Roberts. So she could probably be my boss, though. All right. One more time for you, Barbara. And Barbara, I think if I know you well enough, I think you're well acquainted with how all this stuff works. So I don't need to give you any tutorials. All right, if you were here, Barbara, the way I do readings, I would have you cut the deck for me, which I'm going to do for you right now. And there we go. All right, we're ready to roll. Are you? Let's go. Barbara, this is for you. First card. This is your current situation. The Four of Coins. Now, coins is that suit. It's pentacles in the older decks and some other decks. But the Four of Coins represents your material well-being. It's your money. It's your finances. It's the things that make life go on a material level. That's in your current. You got the Seven of Swords in your recent past. Swords, again, the suit of conflict, power, authority. And the energy you're moving into is the King of Coins. Not a bad card to have. Now, in a 3-card reading, if you've got 2 coins in it, that's 2/3 of your cards are coming from the suit of coins, which means the overall thrust of this is either financial or it's material well-being. It's the stuff that makes life go. I like to not so much focus on just money, because we're all focused on that anyway. So when I see the coins or the pentacles appearing, rather than saying this is strictly about money, unless the whole reading is pointing at money, I like to say that this has to do with your material well-being, the things that make life go for you on a material level. It's kind of the nuts and bolts of life. But it could very well have to do with money, job, profession, all of these things, project work, the things that make our life go. Now, your first card, again, is the Four of Coins. And you see a woman here. She's sitting with her coin in her hand, and she's sitting with coins on the table in front of her. And there's a certain meaning to this. And this is the idea that your ability, now this is your current, it's where you are at the moment, here and now. Your ability to work and your dedication is going to bring you material success. It's not just the desire, but it's the fact that you do it. This is talking about a very strong possibility that a recent trade, a proposition, or a commercial venture is adding a deeper significance to your life, either monetarily or appeasing that drive to get ahead, to be where we need to be. And by the way, when I mention driving to get ahead, I'm not talking about getting ahead of others, pushing others down. That would be a negative. I'm talking about the things that make you go, the things that push you to do better, that bring security in life, security to you, to your loved ones. This is talking about getting financial reward for the effort that you've put in and that you've demonstrated. You're going to triumph is the idea, but the victory is going to be hollow if you only see it as gaining money, because sometimes the gain of money has nothing to do with getting somewhere good for you. And sometimes the gain of money has everything to do with it's the rewards for doing what you've been seeking to do, doing what you're putting your energy into. That's the measuring stick, so to speak, of success, is how it's paying off for us. And so to maintain your financial security, to avoid excess, and to stick to your strengths and your reliability and resourcefulness, you can achieve power, wealth, and by the way, all um what's the word I'm looking for? They're not all determined by just one definition: power, leadership, wealth. There are different scales and different meters of these things. You can achieve all of those things, but only through your effort, your sacrifice. This is a card that at times it's been something that I've seen this stand for, and I'm hailing back to things I read years ago about this card, that sometimes great financial gain could mean that there has been loss and sacrifice in another area. Now, this could be loss of, in the sense of you've worked very hard, you've paid your dues, kind of thing, to get where you are. Sometimes this card represents receiving an inheritance, because, and the loss is somebody had to die in order for you to get this. That's the kind of thing that it's talking about with some forms of the sacrifice. But the idea is that there is gain that gives you a little more power, a little more wealth, a little more authority, a little more leadership. And a lot of it is determined upon what you've given and put to the, put your nose to, or, it could be something that's plopped in your lap and there's sacrifice that's involved of a different kind in there. So the Four of Pentacles, this is a card that stands for security, stability, the presence of elemental balance in your life. And it's in the category of your financial well-being, the nuts and bolts of your life, your material well-being. And it suggests really being smart and frugal with what you have, remaining on a strict budget, but with the security of that comes only positive outcomes. And moving forward will require tenacity on your part. It's a very positive card, but this is in your current. This is saying this is where you are today. So you got something going on. You're moving forward by either your investment, your sacrifice to get there, or the loss of something that has made this happen for you. So that's where you are. But what's led you there, interestingly, is the Seven of Swords. Now, swords, again, like we've already said a couple of times, had swords already today, the suit of power and authority, the suit of conflict. It's conflict that you give, conflict that you give. So it's a two-edged sword that cuts in either direction. You see a guy, he's like collecting up the swords on the battlefield. And this is the idea. Now, this is a card of your past. And it said it might be time to put some of your projects on the back burner. This is where you're coming out of. It might be as early as yesterday. It might be weeks ago. But this is the foundational pass to your current card of the Four of Coins. So this card is saying you might have to put some of your stuff on the back burner in order to give more attention to the pressing issues that are on your plate, the things that are going on for you right now. And the plans you've made aren't coming together as nicely as you wanted them to come together, or as you had hoped. And so the best way through a recent conflict is going to be diplomacy, your cleverness. Avoid overt confrontations. So like this guy is picking up the swords off the field after the fray or during the fray or in spite of the fray. And so your success is going to depend on your ability to overcome your opposition. And the strategy you choose is going to determine whether you suffer losses or you come out ahead. And assessing the opposition is going to make your actions much better informed. So this is a card, though, that speaks overall to failure as well as obvious pessimism that you might hold about achieving the things you want to achieve. It suggests the possibility of theft being perpetrated against you. And that could be tangible things. It could be theft of character, gossip going on about you, conflicts of that nature, not living up to your full potential. So it could be from within. And this is all in the future. I'm sorry, it's in the past, but it's those things happening in the future due to unknown opponents or possibly because of mental procrastination that you've had on your part. It's kind of a negative card that says either you have been working against yourself or somebody is working against you. And so you have to find the strategic, clever ways to circumvent that. Now, this is the card of your past. This is where you have been. You may still be here in this, but this is the energy in your past that's put you into the Four of Coins, having some kind of gain, having sacrificed to get to where you are. And you have decisions to make, and you need to be frugal, and you need to make things work for yourself. But that all leads you to the King of Coins, which I think is a very cool card. It's a very positive card in the coins, in that same suit of financial gain, of material success, and the cautious progress that you've made, the things that you're doing to overcome the problems that are out there, either self-made or being brought to your table. It's leading you toward the success you want to achieve. And the advice that you've recently received is going to be helpful in achieving your goals, whatever that advice has been. This could be the valuable stuff that's been passed on to you, the sacrifices that you've made, the things that you've realized about either who's working against you or how you're working against yourself. There's a bit of idealism that you've had that has shown that you can be a confident person, you can be reliable, but it may do you better to begin focusing on your financial security for the period of time that this is all covering. Consulting a professional, an elder, is going to protect your efforts. Usually the face cards, the royal face cards, the kings, the queens, they represent specific men or women in our lives, or they represent our archetypical energy of ourselves, whether it's male or female. And so this is something that says you need to focus on your financial security, and that's going to come by either focusing on the king qualities that are within you, or there's a male figure out there that's somebody that you can get advice from. You're going to know who this person is. It's a husband, it's a brother, it's an uncle, it's a boss, it's somebody that's a male figure that you can pull that energy from. So consulting a professional or an elder is going to be in your favor right now as you step into your near future. And you have the intrinsic abilities to be this king on top of the heap, in control of the power of the purse is yours, so to speak, metaphorically and physically. But you have the intrinsic abilities in the fields or the financial profit, the material gain that you want. Even if you're not aware that you have them, you've got them, and you're already putting them into place. And so this is about the material gain you have, the financial efforts that you have, the rewards that you have. Your own efforts are going to bring the rewards that you want beyond just material gain. And so the king is reliable, confident, self-sufficient individual. He shows signs of success, wealth, endless personal growth, and attaining your goals will likely require a lot of self-exploration, as well as a firm commitment on your part, but the outcome is a very positive one. This puts you in a very positive place for fulfilling your goals and trying to get a grasp and maintain your power over your own financial security. Hopefully that makes sense. And Jim Jordan, good to see you too. Thanks for being here. I don't know how long ago you typed that, but so hopefully that made sense for you, Barbara. And I hope it's it means something, that it makes sense, that we can and that it's helpful. There you go. Folks, it is now 10:33. I hate to say this, but since Heather didn't come in back in for hers, I've got to kind of cut this off here. I hear some things going on out there, and it looks like I'm going to have to step away here and take care of some things. Thank you for the hour and a half for being here this Sunday morning. Join us tonight on Rocky's program and the Situation Room at 11 p.m. Central, midnight Eastern. And folks, if you want a full reading, all you have to do is go over to my website, scottallenroberts.com, and hit the tarot button, and you can get a couple of different readings there. That helps me keep my family off the streets. And it's part of what I do for a living. If you need one, if you don't have the money for one right now, just let me know. And so there we go. So I want to thank you all for being here today. Rainey just walked into the room. You in any mood to come and say hi? Nope. So she's dealing with kids out there. So that's it for today, folks. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you being here, giving me your time. Have a good Super Bowl Sunday, and hope whatever team you're betting on wins. All right, folks, we'll see you tomorrow, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Western Pacific Time for my program, the Intrepid Radio Program, which will be Monday through Friday this week. And then 2 hours after that is going to be Rocky Stucci's show. And Rocky and I will be on the Situation Room all week long. So thanks for being here once again. And I don't see any. Everybody says good morning. Leslie says good morning. Rainey, to you. Good morning, she mumbles over there in the dark. And so that's it for today. Thanks, folks. Have a good day. We'll see you later. Thanks for joining me.